The Supreme Court just rejected a long-shot effort to overturn the same-sex marriage, they're still calling it marriage for some silly reason, ruling. The court turned away an appeal filed by Kim Davis. Do you guys remember her?
Of course.
A former county clerk in Kentucky who was sued after refusing to issue a marriage license to a gay couple. First of all, based in red-pilled American patriot. Secondly, Washington, the Supreme Court ruled on Monday, turned away a long-shot attempt to overturn the landmark 2015.
They didn't take the case up. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like they didn't decide on it. They just didn't even do it. Yeah,
they didn't want to make a decision on it by not taking up the case.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty gay.
This is from, I agree with you. This is from NBC News, by the way. Without comment, the justices rejected an appeal brought by Kim Davis, a former county clerk in Kentucky who was sued in 2015 for refusing to issue, quote, unquote, marriage licenses because of her opposition to same-sex. By the way, it's kind of funny that sex is censored with 2 asterisks in this context, but it is same S***, who knows what that means? Marriage based on her religious
I've never
beliefs.
seen that before. That's on NBC News directly?
Yeah. And I'm curious if the title does the exact same thing. So this is it's very, very cringe, not a great day for the Supreme Court, but I'm curious what everyone else here has to say about this.
The politics of this is extremely fascinating. Based on other rulings that the Supreme Court recently made, notably on overturning the Dobbs decision, overturning Roe v. Wade, many onlookers and legal professionals assumed that following the logic that the court used in previous cases was going to strike something like this down had they taken the case up. But they strategically decided not to take the case up because I first assumed they didn't want to deal with the backlash of having to turn something like this that is generally popular with Americans. So, if they follow their textualist tinge of the Supreme Court right now, they might have had to overturn this to stay legally consistent, but have chosen to not take up the case. If you guys don't also know, the Supreme Court chooses what cases it takes up and has to make a decision on, or it doesn't have to make a decision on. I think the politics of this is fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully they're willing to take it up soon. I'm curious what you think about this, Shane. I know that you're like just a gigantic LGBTQ
coming from New York, yeah,
activist.
of course.
You know that.
I wish they overturned it. It's the same. I feel the same way about this. I feel about not showing force, a strong force with the immigration stuff or the people breaking the law. This is something they should do. They should overturn it. I think it's an abomination.
Amen, brother.
Promoting people living in unrepentant sin. And I wish they would say, let's overturn it. I don't care about the optics. I'm ready to change things.
And it's not just that. It's actually forcing all of us with our tax dollars to fund a system that says 2 men can be married, which is a total fiction. They can't be. That's not what marriage means.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, what's also interesting is that if there's one institution that shouldn't worry about optics, it's the Supreme Court, because it's one of the few places that you have lifelong membership. So it's interesting that if that's really the motivation is optics, it's interesting that they would care about optics. I think you need 4 votes in favor, if I'm not mistaken, in order to take up a case. It's not a majority, is it?
Isn't it the Chief Justice who decides what case they're taking? I'm not sure.
I honestly don't know. I'm speaking based upon ignorance on the subject. That there's some amount of voting that needs to happen.
Yeah, I think Thomas was one of them that voted to take up the case. I forget who the other one was.
I just wonder who the ones weren't.
Yeah.
I don't know. Does it?
I think it was only 2 that said we should take it up.
Anywhere? Is it published?
I'm sure you can look it up. Yeah, I don't know who the other one was.
The 9 justices of the Supreme Court decide which cases to take, with at least 4 justices needing to vote to grant a writ of Kataria.
So they only needed 4. They've got the majority, and they weren't able to get 4?
Referred to as the rule of 4. Well, allegedly, there's only 3 liberal justices on the court, so you'd assume that the 6 so-called conservative justices would vote not to take.
3 of them had a defect?
Yeah.
It might not even be optics. They might actually be scared for their lives after the Kavanaugh stuff.
I think that's
the death threats, which is ridiculous. That
Why?
They have to worry about
because
that.
we don't arrest the people who do this stuff.
Well, we do, but they don't get even as much jail time.
Yeah,
as
exactly, as they should.
Yep.
Was the one who? Well, and by the way, you're right that small correction to myself. We arrested some of the people who threatened the judges directly, but when you see all the political violence that's occurred with people who haven't been arrested, I mean, if a massive mob surrounds them or does something like that, a lot of those people don't get in any trouble.
The guy who threatened Kavanaugh, who went there to kill him, did go to jail. I believe he's in jail now, or was just found guilty.
Is
But
he
it's
the
for
one
like
who
a small amount of time.
transitioned, and then in court the judge was saying, "I'm glad that this led your family to accept you," or
I
it's
think
just
so.
something completely
Yeah.
insane?
always
I think
insane
I think it's also worth mentioning public opinion currently in the United States on the matter. So I'm reading right now from Pew: about 6 in 10 adults express a positive view of the impact of same-sex marriage being legal, including 36% who say it is very good for society. Roughly 4 in 10 have a negative view, 37%, with 19% saying it's very bad. So there is a supermajority in the country.
But I mean, the Supreme Court shouldn't be motivated by the opinion polls.
Sure, but if they continue to do things that are extremely unpopular, then their legitimacy decreases and they become less relevant as a branch of
Their
government.
legitimacy decreased when they got Ketanji Brown Jackson. Is it Brown
I agree
Jackson
with
or
you.
Jackson
I
Brown?
don't disagree. Like, and they shouldn't again be swayed by the public, but I think they're political realities that just they have to take into account. They shouldn't be influenced by politics. You're right. That's why they allegedly have these lifelong terms, but they don't exist in a vacuum. It's
Well,
just
this
pretty
is-
clear they're affected by other
obviously.
branches of government too, and
They should, though.
we're actually some of us in this room are out of touch generally with the American.
I thought he was going to say out of the closet.
perspective.
I was like, Elaad. Elaad.
Don't get your hopes up, Shane. So generally, some of us might be a little bit out of touch with where the average American is. I don't know if this is totally playing politics. I don't know if the president told them maybe this isn't the right case to take up. There have been rumors, too, that the president is extremely concerned about keeping the majority in the upcoming midterms, because if he were to lose the majority right now, what is there, a 3, 4, 5 seat majority of the Republicans, depending if you're counting Massey as a Republican. So if the Democrats were to gain a majority again, there would be endless investigations. The president would definitely be impeached again. So I think, he might be trying to hedge against that. That's why we're seeing him do the redistricting, among other things.
Yeah. So I think you're right. It's possible that the justices are trying to play politics. I have no idea. Again, obviously, it's not the point of a Supreme Court justice to play politics. I also understand in this hyperpolarized landscape why they might feel a need to. And Shane, I think you're also correct that they could have been intimidated into deciding not to hear the case. But with what you mentioned about opinion polling on the matter, if those numbers are accurate, what it demonstrates is that the law is a teacher. Because remember, gay marriage, quote unquote, was not something that the public demanded. It was not something that was voted for. It was something that was forced onto us by the courts. Even in California, the bluest blue state, they could not get people to vote in favor of it. It was the California Supreme Court that decided that homosexual, quote unquote, marriage existed and had to be respected in the state of California. And in such a limited time, with that legislative change that was forced onto the public by the courts, the American people have largely changed their perspective on this. It can be changed back if the courts decide to reverse the decision. This is not permanent.
Yeah,
I'm
not so sure that it's
they
not.
said of the Roe v. Wade that it was so-called settled law. And that's what I
right.
used to argue to people constantly. I used to interview leftists, women's march people on the street concerned about Roe v. Wade, and I would tell them smugly, "Oh, well, it's settled law." That's what the Supreme
dirty
Court
dog.
justices said. The Supreme Court justices said this is settled law. Doesn't that mean anything to you? And they'd go, "No." And I guess the same logic can apply here to the Obergefell decision. Despite it being settled law, some people would argue that the legality, it's not very textualist in nature and could be overturned. I do think they're taking politics into consideration, though, when it comes to this. And although they maybe shouldn't, I feel like is viewing them too much in a vacuum.
One more thing that I want to point out here, because Kim Davis got brought up, and that's such a throwback for most of us. I don't think I've heard that name in, 10 years? She was made the target of a smear campaign by the media where, rather than discussing whether she had the freedom as an American to not partake in the legitimizing of unions that she understood to be sinful, we instead had conversations about her moral character. What they kept saying was, well, Kim Davis is divorced. Okay, well, sodomy is a sin that cries out to heaven for vengeance, and she's still allowed to oppose it, even if she has committed other sins in her life. The argument is not Kim Davis is a perfect person and the moral guru we all have to listen to. The argument was, does a person have to earn the right to conscientiously object to partaking in the legitimizing of lifestyle choices they understand to be disgusting and wrong? Do they have to earn that by being up to your moral standards, or are they allowed that freedom as Americans?
Yeah, because you're not allowed to speak out against their cult.
Yes.
It's their religion, their cult, wants this stuff to happen. So it's all this attack on Christianity,
Right.
And your morals.
100%.
There's one last tidbit I wanted to add on the gay marriage stuff. gay marriage and gay
just a little tidbit,
Just the tip.
a tiny bit, of a
just the
tidbit.
tip of it.
Why didn't I take it there?
It's worth.
No, that's not what I meant. I just thought tidbit was a funny
My
word to
goodness.
use. I didn't mean it.
Dirty.
I think it's-
He
Family
said it.
show.
That's what you meant.
I think it's worth mentioning that that gay men have become more prominent in the Republican Party now more than ever, both in the closet and out, and that could help in normalizing gay people, particularly for the party that is most predisposed to potentially be against gay
Sorry,
marriage.
Lindsey
and whatnot.
Graham.
Forget Lindsey Graham. It goes way up higher than that. Scott Bessent is,
I don't know.
Well, he's publicly gay. He's out
really?
and gay. He has a pink house, and he's married to a man.
He's got a pink house.
I like that he had the pink house.
Yeah, he has
Like
a
this
pink
guy
house.
looks like Ken.
He sleeps with a pink blanket.
And then
Lots on Zillow.
And
check
a
it
pink
out.
Corvette.
No, there's
and
a lot of-
everything is pink
there's-
for him.
there's
and
a lot of high-ranking gay people
drives a
in
Mini
the Trump
Cooper.
administration and the Republican Party writ large, and the Republican Party isn't nearly as anti-gay and against gay marriage as they used to be, despite there being a religious part of the party that is.
But I also know there's a lot of gay conservatives who don't agree with marriage being dictated by the government, who actually oppose gay marriage.
So I think most of the gay men in the Republican Party support the Obergefell decision.
I've heard both. You know, obviously there's some who are totally fine, and there's others who don't.
You could say that about everything, but I think writ large, the gay Republican men do support their 90% of
You think?
gay men.
Where'd
in
you
the
get that
Republican
number?
Party.
Where'd you get that
All the
90%
gay men
number?
that I've spoken to
All again, and that's been a
in
lot.
that's
the
a lot,
Republican
yeah.
Party, which are
That
there's a ton of them, which there are a lot of.
All the gay men
There's a lot of
on the
pink
grinder
houses.
There's a ton. There's again, you could look up his house. It's very
man.
pink.
I had no
It
idea.
looks really. Watch out, he'll swing on you. You talk shit about gay people in front of Besson.
I
he might
respected that
musk
part.
you in the
Yeah, I was like,
face,
that was
you know what
fun.
I mean?
That was fun.
But that is to say, there are very influential. There are many very influential gay men in the administration, in the party, and this is becoming more normalized in the party. I think going the opposite direction.
Are Christians in the Republican Party supposed to accept that then, just because they're on?
I think a lot
our
of these
side
gay
of
guys
voting?
are so-called Christians, and whether or not you want to accept them as Christians.
Well, I don't. Yeah, I know Peter
guys.
Thiel calls himself a Christian, but he's an unrepentant sinner married to a gay man.
Well, you sin. Are you still
Yeah,
a Christian?
we're all born sinners.
Well,
Okay, so
yeah, but
you
there's
can
a
still be a
difference.
Christian.
I'm not.
between-
I'm not living in
there's a
unrepentant
question.
sin.
There's a
married to a man.
difference.
I don't know. I mean, you know more
so-
about your sins than I do, and I'm not here to tell
Yeah,
people they
yeah.
are or aren't Christian based on their.
We're all.
sins.
We're all
Well,
flawed.
no, but there's actually an important distinction here. Like, it is also a sin to deny the divinity of Jesus Christ. You wouldn't say, well, you can't tell that person they're not Christian because they deny the divinity of Jesus Christ, because you also sin. Like, if you have chosen to base your beliefs around something explicitly anti-Christian, and you've said what the church, what tradition, what scripture explicitly defines as a sin isn't a sin, and I'm not allowed to do it, and I am allowed to do it, is different from being a believing Christian who sometimes makes mistakes.
Yeah, but Seamus, for example, that's like you're stripping away many people of their religious,
No, I'm not.
ideology.
Their decision
That's
making.
that's their bad. That's bad.
decision-making.
That's
So
bad
most
theology.
Catholics, as I understand, are pro-choice, and
Those are not practicing Catholics.
so you'd say more
They are
than half
not
of the
practicing
people who
Catholics.
call themselves Catholic aren't.
certainly
That's Hollywood
They
Catholic.
baptized Catholics. They're not practicing Catholic. But this is not
Are you
just
the Pope
me.
though? Like, are
no,
you the one
no,
who's able
no,
to
and because,
decide this?
And
The Pope
because
is.
I'm the Pope, no, I'm not allowed to decide this because I'm not the Pope. I have to follow what the Church has already said, and what the Church has already said is there's certain standards you have to meet in order to be considered a practicing Catholic, and one of them is you have to give full assent to Catholic teaching, including the teachings on abortion. Ergo, no, they literally are not practicing Catholics by definition.
So-
I would be playing God and playing Pope, right? If I were to say, no, you can be Catholic, you can be a practicing Catholic, even if you explicitly reject church teaching.
So I'm a Jew, so I'll hold my tongue only a little bit when talking on these Catholic issues. As I understand, the Pope recognizes these people as Catholics.
The Pope does not recognize them as practicing Catholics, and the magisterium of the church does not recognize them as practicing Catholics.
The
They're
Pope
not
doesn't
practicing
recognize people
Catholics.
who are
They
pro-choice
can
as
be-
Catholics, or
They are not.
we're deciphering
the Pope
between
has
Catholic
not,
and
the Pope has not issued
practicing Catholics.
the Pope has not issued a statement overturning church teaching that practicing Catholics have to give assent to Catholic teaching. The Pope has not done that.
Okay, so
Those people aren't Catholic.
Okay.
Anyway, we can move on from this topic because otherwise, yeah, we can move on.
I want to
from
do
this
another
topic.
hour.
What's that?
Can we do another hour?
I think the gay stuff is all of that is to say the gay stuff's becoming more normalized in the Republican Party, despite.
I think aren't there a lot of graphs that show that like support for gay marriage is declining?
Yes,
right now?
and there's a revival in Christianity right now
yeah,
as
and
well.
there's a revival in Christianity.
I think,
So
I think anything that you do to shrink the party is probably bad for the party and for the United States, because if you allow the Democrats to get back into power, they're going to start throwing conservatives in jail. If Christians have
self-preservation.
Yeah, if they have the desire for self-preservation, you do not want Democrats back in power. The Democrats call Christians Christian nationalists. They associate Christians with Nazis. They associate Christians with evil, and they will use the government to oppress you.
My self-preservation is rooted in eternity, outside of the material world.
You are welcome to have that opinion.
And I'm not going to sacrifice my beliefs to help the party, the material world. I can't. I'm not going to vote for someone who is also antithetical to my beliefs, whether it's right.
That's fine to have that opinion, but if you do, then you are going to send people that don't agree with that into the hands of the Democrats and into the hands of people that will destroy the country.
My thing is, though, I think we're screwed on either side right now. And one of the things I have, the problem with Trump is the total embrace of Silicon Valley, which is anti-human and anti-Christian. And they're building out a dystopia that is shackling people to the material world. So I right now, I feel like they're both kind of selling out humanity and the middle class for sure.
And by the way, Phil, even though I disagree, I understand your argument from strategy. I understand coming at it from a place of pragmatism. A, I agree with Shane, but and B, then it becomes a question of how much do we allow the party to change and lose its identity for the sake of getting outside people in? Because at some point you go, well, what are we fighting for? What values do we have?
There has always been a part of the of the right that was based not on religious principles. There has always been a wing, or whatever you want to call it, of the Republican Party that was based on economics and not based on social conservatism. And I think that it is important to keep the big tent. Because look, if you're going to start saying you are a sinner, so you're not welcome in my party, you're going to.
That's what I'm saying.
No, yeah, that's not the
I
argument.
believe we're all born sinners.
It sounds a lot like it, because it's going to start saying, okay, if you're a pro-choice conservative or a pro-choice Republican, you can't be here. If you're a gay Republican, you can't be here. These things will whittle away at support on the right. And that is not something that the right can afford.
What we're
because right now,
saying is,
the right is largely made up of Democrats. Look at Donald Trump, RFK, Tulsi Gabbard. All these people are Democrats that are basically not far left enough. Right now, we have a big tent Republican Party, and it's fine if you don't have to agree. But I don't think that saying, look, we need to kick out people, or we need to stop aligning with the big tent party because our faith won't allow us. I think that will cause massive problems for the country.
That's not what we're saying. If someone is in favor of abortion, I want them to vote Republican. The Republican Party should not become a pro-abortion party. And if it does, then you're not allowing the pro-lifers and the people who have sustained this party for decades and been the most reliable voting bloc for it are going to be pushed out. So it's a question of which side we're on, and it's a question of which policies we're going to adopt. If the Republican Party says that it's going to become a pro-abortion party, it loses like 90% of its appeal for me.
That's fine. And
people are going to leave. So if someone's pro-abortion, again, I want them to vote for our candidates. We should not change our position.
So fair enough. I may be using abortion as a bad example when it comes to the issue about whether or not gay people should be welcomed in the Republican Party, or whether or not we should overturn Obergefell.
Remember, that's just the federal overturn, same as Roe versus Wade, right? You still have states' rights to have gay marriage, correct? I mean, that's all that this is. This would be a discussion of that. Or no?
I think that's probably what would happen. The federal government would probably turn it over to the states if they overturned Obergefell. It would just be like,
right, you're not making gay marriage illegal in the United States. You're just simply overturning the federalization of the gay marriage law. Correct?
Fair enough. But like I said, we are the reason the MAGA coalition has won is because it is a big tent coalition. And the Christian conservatives are an important leg, but also the not left enough Democrats that have found a home in the MAGA coalition, they are important too, because that is what Donald Trump is. That is what Tulsi Gabbard is. That is what RFK is. That is what most of the people in Washington that are in the cabinet are those people.
And this is maybe where we disagree, but where we probably do have some area of agreement, which is I do think that with the parties transforming and changing and people moving over to the Republican Republican Party from the Democratic Party. There are ways the Republican Party can benefit policy-wise. I just think it's on diametrically opposite issues. Like, I would rather see the Republican Party maybe embrace like some kind of support for local social safety nets, or the kind of thing the Republican Party might not spring for in the past with people who were traditionally Democrats entering into the party, or some of the stuff RFK says about what's in our food supply. Historically, Republicans have said that's nanny state stuff. We don't want anyone being concerned with the health of our food. I do think there's room for policy growth on the
Medicare
right
for all?
with the no, absolutely not, because single payer would destroy the country. But I don't think abortion is one of
What's
those
the
issues.
difference? If you allow the Democrats to get into power, that'll destroy the country too, because they're gonna get single payer.
Wait, I'm not sure you're saying if we let the Democrats get power, they're going to get single payer? But we can't just be like but the thing is, we can't only be 1% to the right of the Democrats, because if they get elected, it'll be worse. We have to draw a line somewhere. And I think we just ultimately disagree over where we draw the line.
I mean, maybe, but I think that in my opinion, the conservatives or the Republicans winning is the most important thing.
Well, Elaad, you've been wanting to say something for a while, so let you jump in. And by the way, this could also be part of the after show.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
There's just one thing I feel like it's important to hit on, and I want to ask you this, Seamus. Do you feel marginalized by the Trump administration, kind of your support being taken for granted, given his stances on things like abortion?
Yep.
Recently in Texas, he didn't want to challenge a case regarding mifepristone, the abortion pill. I don't know if you're against IVF, but he's definitely very supportive of IVF. Depending on how you look at this Obergefell thing, to not even take up the case, you could say that he's tacitly pro gay marriage.
Well, no, he's openly gay marriage, but I don't think that has anything to do with.
So do you feel
Obergefell.
marginalized as a result of that? Because I mean, a lot of your top issues are taking a back seat in the Trump administration.
No, absolutely. And I don't want to speak for Shane here, but I think this is the way that, and I don't want to speak for you either, but I think this is the way that a lot of conservative Christians feel, that the party's trying to abandon
he
us at
softened
this
his
point.
stance on abortion before the election.
Not good.
I didn't
really,
like that
really
at all.
pissed me. No, that really made me angry. The reality was, I knew that Kamala was so much worse on the issue, so I just didn't really have a choice. But I thought that was a disaster.
He is the most pro-choice Republican,
pro-abortion Republican that we've ever had. Yep,
we've ever had.
It's unfortunate. I agree with you. I don't like it. So yes, to answer your question, yes, I do feel marginalized. I think it's a bad thing, and I do not.
And you probably should, frankly,
with
how it's going.
Yeah,
especially on IVF, by the way.
Very bad.
Very
bad. Lots of unborn babies made and then just flushed away, just killed.
It's interesting with Trump though, because it's a give and take, because he is not the ideal candidate for somebody who has Christian beliefs in every single belief, but he's also one of the only candidates who actually stands up for Christians. Like we're talking about, Christians being slaughtered over in Africa,
Nigeria,
and he's the only politician I can think of that actually is addressing it. So, it's give or take with Trump. Trump is always complicated. It's never just black and white with Trump.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.